Hi there, friends. This is a deep one, but I think it's really important to discuss. It seems like ever since I was born, I was assigned a role: caretaker, fixer, emotional air traffic controller. I was the one who smoothed things over, the one who learned early when to hold my tongue, not for survival in the dramatic sense, not life or death, but for humanity's survival. For harmony, for peace, for not making things worse. I understood very young that being easy was safer than being honest. I know my parents did the best they could with what they had, and when they did not do their best, they did pretty terrible. Both things can be true. I became who I am because of the struggle, but the struggle also trained me. As a kid, I learned to pacify, to read the room, to make myself smaller so the temperature stayed manageable, even though it never really did. We already had the difficult one, the sassy bossy one, and the dreamer. And then there was me, the leftover child, the invisible child, the one they did not really have to worry about because I would not do anything too wrong until I did. That conditioning followed me straight into adulthood. Every relationship felt familiar in the same way my childhood did. I offered myself up on the altar again and again, not because anyone demanded it, but because that was the language I knew. Love meant accommodation. Connection meant self abandonment. Stability meant swallowing myself. I did not truly understand what a healthy symbiotic relationship looked like until my mid to late 30s, which is wild. In my last serious romantic relationship, that familiarity showed up quietly, comfortably. He was a caretaker too, a giver, conditioned to orient towards others instead of himself. But his caretaking did not look like mine. Where I anticipated, he withheld. Where I overfunctioned, he stayed contained. Where I smoothed, I swallowed. From his point of view, he was still giving, still caring, still participating, just not in the same way or at the same depth. And because we were both operating from conditioning, neither of us had the language to name what was actually happening. On paper, it looked stable, no chaos, no constant blow ups, but underneath, there was a slow emotional imbalance forming. We were not meeting each other. We were managing survival strategies side by side and calling it intimacy. I offered myself because earning closeness through effort felt normal. He stayed just out of reach because closeness meant exposure, and exposure never felt safe. I did not villainize him. I recognized him, because my overgiving and his withholding were two sides of the same coin. Then the pandemic hit, and suddenly the whole world slowed down. People had time, too much time, time to reflect, time to notice what worked and what did not. I had already been living in chaos. I was just moving fast enough not to feel it, and now I had to sit with it. I am not an extrovert. I was not overly social growing up, but being forced to stay home, being around someone I loved deeply without distractions, stripped everything down. This is when the epiphany started. I went inward and outward, into myself, into conversations with friends, into my spiritual team, into the cosmos looking for clarity. There was no map, and that terrified me because I had always played things safe. But playing my life safe was keeping me miserable, uncomfortable, and unseen. My confidence was gone, or maybe it never really existed. People had pointed that out before. They told me how good I was at my job, how strategic I was, how excellent I was at taking care of others. But nobody asked why I was not taking care of myself. Why was my weight increased? Why my health was declining? Why I flew off the handle over small things? Why I lashed out at people I loved most and allowed them to lash out at me in return. This is when I started seeing patterns. I noticed how people would get close to my parents, then eventually be dismissed, shamed, cut off. I watched it happen over and over, with helpers, with family. They did it to most of their children. They did it to me. I am not angry about it. I needed to leave the nest anyway. But I became the one who stayed connected to the people who were dismissed, the one who tried to save them, to prove that they still mattered. I did this with my grandmother. She was mentally unstable, an addict, deeply traumatized. Toward the end, much of it turned inward. And still, I loved her intensely. She saw me, the real me. I did it with my aunt, too, someone I had always admired for her independence, her education, her resilience. She wanted partnership, not rescue, but never quite found someone safe. My parents embraced her, then grew tired of her when she no longer progressed the way that they expected. Her mental and physical health had changed. Her brain was not the same. Nobody wanted to say it out loud, but I saw it, I accepted it, and I stepped in again. Until I realized I was enabling relationships that were costing me my own health. Ending that was one of the hardest things I had ever done, because boundaries feel cruel when you were taught that love equals sacrifice. As I started choosing myself, something else happened. People faded. Friends, cousins, siblings. I still see their lives on social media, but I was always the one reaching out. I am not resentful, it's just what it is. Choosing myself is lonely. But here's the truth. I had always been lonely. I just distracted myself by overextending. My relationships did not disappear. They changed capacity. Right now, I see my ex-boyfriend, who is still one of my closest friends, moving through the same reckoning. His last relationship ended, but the emotional tether remains. I recognize it instantly, because I have been there. A person who has lost themselves cannot be happy, not in love, not in life, not without doing the work. And now, here is what I know. Losing yourself does not happen all at once. It happens quietly, in choosing peace over truth, in choosing to be needed instead of known. I do not regret the love I gave. I regret how long I believed that love required my disappearance. Love does not ask you to shrink. It does not ask you to abandon your health, your voice, or your boundaries. It does not require self-erasure. Healthy love is reciprocal. It allows two whole people to exist side by side. Choosing yourself is not flashy. It is lonely. It is misunderstood. But it is honest. The people who can meet you there will. The people who cannot will fade, and neither outcome is failure. I am still learning, still unlearning, still choosing myself imperfectly and deliberately. But I will never again confuse devotion with self-abandonment. And if you recognize yourself in this story, know this. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. You are not broken for waking up. You are becoming whole.